The webinar is now broadcasting to all attendees. I'll let you know when we have some.
All right.
They're not showing up yet. Okay, let's see. So we've got 2. What's up, Carissa? What's up, Sarah?
Chris and Sarah.
Live on.
Oh, there it is. I see Chris
Yeah.
saying. Hey.
Awesome. So you can see the comments. So we've got Hillary Askew. What's up, Hillary?
Hillary.
Pete Hart. So we've got a handful of, we got a bunch of our coaches. Awesome. We're going to get going here in just a second.
Hey, Kate.
Who's that? Sarah Seagrass. What's up, Sarah? Okay, last time I did this, the Facebook thing didn't work, so we're crossing our fingers.
Right. How's that light behind me? Is that cool on or we turn it off?
Yeah, it looks good to me. Guys, how does that look? Carissa, Kate, how does that look behind Justin? And does it look like I have a halo on?
It is a kind of.
Looks good, yes. Hi. All right. Let's do this. Live on Facebook. All right. I think it's working.
Janet saying she can't hear anything.
Hey, can y'all hear anything? Carissa, Kate?
Okay.
Wait, can you guys see us? Kate, no, we can't see you. Put your clothes on. All right. So let's see. I've got it up on Facebook. I haven't gone live yet. What are we gonna name this thing? We're naming it World Series Vision Goals with Justin Sua and Michael Cazayoux. God, that's a sexy title.
I like that. I like it.
All right. So any last? Wait, can you? Okay, good. We're good. Go live. We're just starting.
Okay, it's not. I was just letting you know it's not on.
Okay. Should be. Can you check it again? All right, I think we're live on Facebook.
I think so.
Can you check it one more time? You're live. Okay, cool. I think we're good. If anybody sees us on the WAG Facebook page, let us know. Otherwise, I'm looking it up. We're good? All right. Facebook land, what's up? Thanks for joining us. Justin, thank you so much for your time as always, brother.
Glad to be here, my friend.
Dude, you just won the World Series. For those of you who don't know, Justin is the mental skills coordinator for the Red Sox and the Cleveland Browns, and the Red Sox just won the World Series. Dude, how are you feeling? What's it like being a part of an organization like that?
Surreal, like incredibly surreal, because this is what you work so hard for. And I sent a text to somebody earlier today and saying it's really nice when all of your hard work, the process, your bouncing back, when it all leads into a championship. This is what you work so hard for, and to be surrounded by people who are really good at what they do and who are all working in lockstep together to achieve a common goal. best feeling in the world, in terms of professionally. And it was a very special season, and I had a lot of ups and downs, but it was absolute blast. So everything culminating until into last night.
So do you get to be in the dog pile or what?
No, I wasn't in the dog pile in this one. I get to watch and experience it. I was there in spirit, but it was an absolute blast to watch the journey and to see them experience that.
That's so cool, man. Well, congratulations to you.
Appreciate it.
So I was talking to you before this. I don't think I've ever heard you talk about how you got into this world in the first place. So give us a little bit of background. How did you come to do what you're doing, and how did you know that this was the right career for you?
Yeah, really, really interesting. So I get this question all the time, or if any of you are watching this and you're thinking, how do I become a mindset coach or mental performance coach? Because it's not something that I even thought I didn't even know existed when I was young. I didn't even know existed 7 years ago. And so I grew up and I wanted to be a professional baseball player. My dad actually played for the Dodgers in the Dodgers organization, who the Red Sox just beat in the World Series. So played in the organization, wanted to be a pro baseball player, and ended up getting to college, played 4 years in college, realized, read the writing on the wall, wasn't going to cut it. So I pivoted and I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I got my degree in sports broadcasting, and they teach you how to synthesize information. I just love to speak, and I love to be around sports. And my very first day at NBC Sports Los Angeles for my internship, hated it. Absolutely could not stand it. I didn't like interviewing athletes. I wanted to help the athletes. And so took my wife and my one child at the time from Los Angeles. And we went back to Salt Lake City or Utah and became a teacher. So I was a teacher there, and I was 5 years or so. But in my heart, I always wanted, there was something else I needed to do. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I know I wanted to be involved in sports and something to do with teaching. And the thing I kept telling my wife was, I want to change the world. I want to impact the world. So one night, I'll never forget this. We're getting ready to go to bed and turn the lights off. And I remember sharing my vision or my dream with my wife. And I remember saying, one of these days, I'm gonna impact the world. I'm gonna impact a lot of different people. And my wife, who's incredibly supportive, she ends up kind of mumbling under her breath, "You're all talk." And I remember kind of hearing it, but just wasn't quite sure because she's never spoken to me like that before. Just said that because she's usually so supportive. And I said, "What did you say?" She goes, "You're all talk." So I reach over, I turn the lights on to the room, and I was like, "Wait, what do you mean I'm all talk?" She says, "Justin, you always talk about you're going to make a difference in the world, and you're going to go out and speak, and you're going to train, you're going to do all these things, and you never do it. You've been saying this for years, and you never do it." And I always tell people, little does she know that moment was one of the most life-changing moments of my life, when the person who I love the most, who supports me the most, pretty much called me out and says, "You're all talk." Next morning, I'm looking up like grad school programs. And I don't know why I went to grad, went there first, but I did. And I saw the psychosocial aspect of sport at the University of Utah. In other words, sports psychology.
Yep.
I had to beg to get inside the program because I didn't have any of the prerequisites. I was pretty much on academic probation before I even started. And once I went through it, I got an emphasis in the zone, or helping athletes get into the zone. Once I got my degree, I left my job of teaching, the 9-to-5 teaching job, to open up my own consulting business. Crazy. And I had 3 kids at the time now. But I knew this is what I wanted to do. But in addition to being a mental skills coach, I was a waiter. I was a part of a multi-level marketing. I was coaching baseball. I was making money to put a roof over our head and food on the table, but I still had my side hustle. And the more income I had with the side hustle, I would just kind of get rid of other jobs until this just became what I did. And so landed a job with a dancer on So You Think You Can, Dancing with the Stars, Chelsea Hightower. And that led to the military picking me up. So moved our family to San Antonio, did it with combat medics and military intelligence and wounded warriors. And then wrote a couple of books while I was there. And then the IMG Academy reached out to me, then Boston Red Sox, Cleveland Browns, and then next thing you know, here we are. And so what got me into it is I love sports. I love to help people. and I love to teach. And those three things are what I do every single day. So it's been a fun journey.
Dude, I've known you for 3 or 4 years now, and I've never heard that. That's about as inspiring as it could possibly get. Because I think most people think that people with jobs like yours at the top of the top of the top, it like fell in their lap, or they had to know someone. But you literally crawled your way from a teaching job through a ton of different jobs that wasn't the right job, and you crawled your way all the way to what I would say is the top of the top for your type of role.
I appreciate you saying that. I love speaking to people who are on this journey, because what you said is so true. Like to have 0 followers on Instagram wasn't really invented at that time. No social media, nothing. I have no experience. I didn't know anybody who wanted to do what I wanted to do. Being in pro sports wasn't even fathomable. I didn't even know that was a possibility. And so it was hard. It was dark. I questioned myself. I didn't know if it was right. Wondered all the time, should I go back into teaching? But I just kept doing it because I loved it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right in terms of it was to start from 0, to start from just a dream and a vision, and just to keep going to end up here. It has been, just feel so grateful, so grateful, but unbelievable amounts of work. I'd stay up to like 2, 3, 4 in the morning writing blog posts for my grandma. Like, she was the only one who'd like it. She would comment, and she'd be like, "Are you coming home for Thanksgiving?" I'm like, "Grandma, this is my business page." Like, stay on my business page.
No, are you serious?
Oh yeah.
That's great.
I have some posts that I just was so consistent. I just kept doing it every day. I just kept showing up, even though I wasn't getting likes, wasn't getting views, wasn't getting anything. And but I was doing it for me, just to get my reps in. And little by little, it just kept growing. And now I'm going back and I'm recycling some of the stuff that I wrote years ago. And now I'm showing it now. And now one's like, "Oh, that's great." Where before,
right.
Yeah, and it was like, "Oh, no one even notices it." Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. So I heard vision, I heard motivation, I heard sticking with it because it's a part of the process. I want to dive into all of that in this interview. Before that, was that your wife gave you a very unpopular opinion? Like she put herself in the line of fire by standing up for your greatness, as I call it. Is that a type of relationship that y'all had, or did it just change in that instant where she gave you that feedback?
I love that. What did you say?
She stood up for your greatness.
I like that. I've never heard it put like that.
I stole it from a friend.
It's amazing. So that's exactly what she did. And that's one of the things that really attracted me to her, is she is very direct. She's a very strong woman. And we always tease, especially in the beginning of our marriage, because we're both very the same. We can both get hot and we can both be stubborn, but we've learned after 14 years of marriage how to connect with each other and speak to each other, so we don't trigger the other person or even trigger yourself. Right. But one thing I love about her is she's so good with her timing. She's so tactful, and she knew at that moment that's exactly how I needed to hear it. And so we are very open. We lovingly give each other feedback at the right time, and we've learned from moments where it wasn't the right time, but at that moment, it was something that she's done at other times as well, but that was professionally one of the most distinct moments that I'll never forget. But yeah, we tend to be like that, giving each other that kind of feedback in an open and honest way, and in a loving way.
Such a cool story, man.
Yeah, thanks.
So now you work with literally some of the best athletes in the history of sports. I assume that comes with a lot of pressure. What's one of, or the most challenging part of your career for you personally?
Yeah, so I think the first one is one of my number one values is being with my family. It is family. And when you work with elite athletes who it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this is what they do. To be able to go, it's very time consuming. And to go from, whether it be Boston or Maine or Virginia or Cleveland or wherever we're going, now with children, is kind of trying to find that balance when there really is no balance, but to be able to navigate my professional life with my family life, and winning at home. Winning at home is so big. So on a personal level, that's the biggest challenge. Now, working with the elite athletes themselves, there's a few. So to be able to work with some of the greatest athletes in the world who are making millions and millions of dollars, who sometimes they might not want to be the most coachable, or might not want to hear a message on something that can help them out. So that's why relationships are so important. But sometimes these elite athletes keep their guard up because they have so many people clamoring for their attention. They have so many people who, hey, give me some, and they have to be protective of it. Who am I going to open up to? Who am I going to share this with? Because what do you want from me? And I think it's that time, like really sometimes taking years to build a relationship so strong that can bear the weight of truth with these athletes, to where they can finally say, okay, let me hear what you have to say. And sometimes you want that process to go a lot faster, but that's just the nature with the elite athlete. With a young athlete or with a different athlete, you can just give something immediately and they'll take it. Okay, great. Let's go do it. Elite athlete, you've got to show it. You've got to show that you know what you're talking about, number one, and that you really care about them as a person, number two. And so I think professionally, the time, how long it takes. And then another one is when you are at the highest level, you have some things that work for you. And anytime you hear the word mental coach or psychology, that can have a negative stigma, like a negative connotation. And like, wait a minute, I don't want the mind guy to mess with my mind. But once they're able to see, oh, it's more of a proactive approach and not a reactive. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not mentally weak if I have to talk to Justin. That's something that kind of correlates to the first, what I just mentioned, but overcoming that obstacle as well. Those tend to be the biggest ones.
And so in building that relationship with people, I think this is something that any coach or teacher or leader experiences to some degree. What's the trick for, or what are some of the tricks for building a relationship in a way that is not pushy?
Yeah. Being able to ask the right questions, I think, is time number one, just being present. And when it's 105 degrees outside and it's humid and you're sweating in the middle of the dog day summer, for them to look to the left and see you standing there sweating with them, that means a lot. That goes a long way. When it's freezing and it's snowing and it's 20 something degrees on the sideline and everyone's shivering, they look to the left and they see you standing there shivering with them, that goes a long way. So time does absolutely, and being present definitely matters. But then in addition to that is when you caring about them as a person. I think everybody, because their identity is so wrapped up in being a pro athlete, even for themselves, every single family reunion, every holiday, how's football, how's baseball? That's what everybody wants to know about them. But when you look at them and sit them down and say, hey, how's your family doing? For some of them, there's like, whoa, like no one asked me about my family. How's your fiance? Hey, tell me about how you asked her to marry you, or whatnot. Those little questions to show that you care as a person really, really make a difference, and it really matters. And it doesn't have to be big in a production. It could be a simple text. Hey, thinking about you. Hey, hopefully you're doing well. Saw this quote. Thought that you might like it, and not even looking for a response or anything. Not going back. Hey, did you get my text? No, right. Just sending it. And I think, and it comes down to just being consistent with it. Just being consistent. I think that really helps build that relationship.
It kind of sounds like the dating game. Like you can't be too pushy because they pull away. You give
exactly.
them up so they come chasing for you.
Exactly. And a lot of times what happens too is when you're the mental guy, it's like, okay. And I just call it the mental guy. When you're known as that, it's like, at first, okay, are you analyzing me, Justin? Or are you going to give me some kind of profound one-liner that's going to change my life, to show them that, hey, you know what? Let's talk about Dragon Ball Z. Let's talk about just random stuff, to be able to sit down and just say, hey, I don't always have to talk about mindset, and to show them that, oh, okay, he's a normal person who doesn't have to talk about it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that can become overbearing for people. And so to show, hey, just I come in peace, want to get to know you. I'm here as a resource if you ever need. And I think you're right, that dating game. You don't want to be too pushy, but show them that, hey, I'm here to help if ever you need.
Right.
Yeah.
So earlier you were talking about your vision of becoming someone that could change the world, someone that could have a big impact on people.
Yeah.
What is the real value of intentionally creating a vision for your life, and how is that different than goal setting?
Yeah. So for vision, when I think about vision, I think about that Martin Luther King "I Have a Dream" speech. For me, vision is kind of a collection of who you want to become, not necessarily the steps, not necessarily the process, but what does it look like? What is your vision for the best version of yourself? Who do you want to be? How do you want your relationships to be? What do you want? What habits do you want to have? If you can create the ideal, it could be life, day, financially, what do you want that to look like? Again, taking out the steps and the process, how to get there, that's more the goal setting. That's what I believe the vision is. And I believe it's so important to have that vision. It reminds me of the story. There was a lady, and I forgot her name, and I forgot the time, but she was swimming from Catalina Island in the West Coast, off the shore of California, to California, 26 or so miles. And the first time she tried to do it, it was getting exhausting, and the fog started to come in, and she didn't end up making it. She ended up tapping out, only to get in the boat and realized, I think hundreds, I think she's only like 1,000 or maybe like 800 feet away, like not far at all. She was right there. And she goes on to tell the reporters that if I would have been able to see the shore, if I would have seen it, I would have kept going. That's the vision right there. Sometimes we get clouded. Vision is, what does it look like? What does success look like? What does that relationship look like? Again, it's more broad, and goal setting are the steps that you take in order to get and to realize that vision. And I think it can take a number of different goals. Vision is more kind of long-term, big. And so yeah, that's how I break down the two.
Dude, that's such a powerful, I don't know if it's a metaphor or an analogy. It's such a powerful story, because it makes me think about all of the times in my life when I haven't had a vision for some part of my life. And I just get caught up in the day-to-day grind, and it feels so, it feels like a grind. It feels so effortful, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm attached to a greater purpose and vision, those things are just effortless, and they're actually fun, and they don't take nearly as much energy to do.
Great point. And it brings up another little parable I shared in my podcast a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, of the story of this person who was going by and met 3 workers, and went to the first worker and says, "What are you doing?" And he was putting bricks. He's like, "Oh, I'm putting bricks down." And he goes to the second worker who's doing the exact same thing. "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm building a wall." Goes to the third person, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm building a cathedral." The third person having the vision of the big picture, and exactly what you're saying. When you attach your process to the bigger picture, yeah, it is more effortless. You have more energy. There is more focus. There's a sense of urgency to it. And research shows you're more resilient, more focused. It's just, research shows that the better, stronger, and the sharper your vision is, the better off you're going to be. Now, for goal setting, for a simple formula that I love for goal setting, so there's a researcher named Gabrielle Audigen who comes up with WOOP. It's an acronym, wish, outcome, obstacle, and then plan. I changed it to make it just a little bit more fit me, and I call it G-WAP. G-WAP. So the G stands for the goal, and it's very like SMART goals. When I sit down with an athlete or whoever it is, the goal, it's got to be time bound. It's got to be specific. It's something that has to be black and white. Did you do it? Yes. Or did you do it? No. And another thing to take into consideration with goals, in my opinion, is to understand, to identify what kind of racer are you? What kind of sprinter are you? So runner are you? For example, some people, they love the marathons. They're really good at marathons. Some, they need the goalpost a little bit closer. They need a 400. Some people are better at 200. Some people are better at the 100 meters. Same thing for goal setting. Some people, they love the 5-year goals. That's not me in particular. Some people, maybe it's the 1 year. Some people, maybe it's a 6 month. Me, I'm the 2-month person. Like I can go all in for 2 months and then pop my head up and then, okay, let's readjust. Some
Right.
people need even closer. They need it 1 month or 1 week. So find out which one looks best, which one's best for you, most effective for you. So that's where the goal is. The W for the G-WAP stands for your why. Then it's like, why do you want to achieve this goal? Because when you know why you do what you do, you'll have more power to do it. And it's so important. A lot of people forget the why factor in it. It's so powerful. And then GWO stands for obstacles. So what are all of the obstacles that you are going to face, whether it be internally or externally? A lot of times we look at obstacles like, oh, okay, this can happen, but what are your own demons that you have to battle? Maybe you're not a morning person and your goal is going to require you to be a morning person. Maybe you lack discipline and maybe you're going to have to create new systems to be able to get there. And then the P stands for planning to face those obstacles. And we call that implementation intentions. Research shows that when you plan how you're going to respond to obstacles, you're over 60% more likely to respond effectively as opposed to not planning for obstacles at all. And so that's a simple little formula we go through in terms of goal setting. And the big umbrella over all that is the vision. And as you achieve this goal, ultimately, what is it going to lead to? And what kind of vision is it going to lead to? Where are you going with this? And so, yeah, that's kind of a little bit of an insight of the process that we use with a lot of these elite athletes.
I love it, dude. I love that the 60%. The thing about the obstacles. That's amazing.
Yeah, incredible research out of it's called, for those who want to study the research, implementation intentions. Yeah, very fascinating research.
Any other tips about creating vision? Any other guidelines for that?
For vision is all about the questions you ask yourself. And that I'm a huge proponent of figuring things out yourself. Huge. And I get really, I'll tell you what makes me really uncomfortable. I get really uncomfortable when people are like, oh, the guru, Justin, who knows everything. And because I don't. And I'm a huge proponent for go figure it out yourself. Like go find out what works best for you. Ask yourself better questions. You have the answers. So many times where people say, hey, what do I do about this? And I'll Google their question and I'll say, hey, I found this article. I just Googled it, and just to show them that that's how easy it is. Hey, I would ask yourself this question and this question. So to answer your question more about vision, I would ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? What do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want your day to look like? A day in a life, like what in terms of your career? What do you want? How do you want to be fulfilled? Like what do you want it to look like? Another question for your vision could be as simple as, what skill sets do you want to develop? Like what do you want to develop or end up becoming? Another one, what do you love to do? As you write these questions down and literally just sit down with a pen and a paper for like 20 minutes and just think and just let it just silence, you're going to be amazed on the insight that you get as you create space for thoughts and inspiration and revelation just to kind of pop into your mind. That's how I do it myself. And my vision for myself keeps and it could change, it can evolve, it can grow. And that's what I would say. I think a basic principle would be start asking yourself better questions.
Such great advice, man. I think about clarity kind of like this. You know, when you go to the eye doctor and they have those machines and they say, is this one better or this one? This one or this one?
Yeah.
Clearer and clearer and clearer. When I first started, trying to develop vision and clarity around what I want in life, it was very, very unclear, but I kept doing the exercises. I kept asking myself the questions, and it just keeps getting clearer and clearer the more I'm intentional about where I'm going. So it's kind of like you're honing in on what you really, really want, and you got to start somewhere, and you can develop the skill of becoming your own visionary.
I 100% agree with that. And what I really loved about what you said is it's going to take work to develop your vision. Yeah, you're right. It's not some one time, okay, let me get my vision today. then do it the next day and the next day and the next day. And the more you keep doing it, you're right. All of a sudden things start to focus and your vision becomes more and clear, more sharp. It's added to it. But if you constantly keep that in the forefront of your mind, hey, what's my vision? What's my vision for my life, for myself every day or often? You'll see how ideas will pop in your mind while you're driving, while you're working out, when you're at work in a meeting, and have something ready to write because it's going to come. It's going to come. And so that's a great point. I agree wholeheartedly.
And guys, this should be like stuff like if you could wave a magic wand, what would your life look like? It should be very big and scary because if it's not, then it's not going to be really compelling. It's not going to motivate you for a very long period of time. So it should be huge.
I agree. Swing. So many people we get caught up in this afraid to swing for the fences. That's when that monkey mind gets in, that negativity, and we start diminishing and destroying our own dream, our own vision. We start crushing our own vision before it could even bud, before it could even fully grow. No, we try to put in this evidence behind it. Oh no, I don't have a master's degree, or no, I don't have this, or no, my family has. No, like you can just go big, swing for the fences. One of my favorite stories, Lou Holtz for Notre Dame. So he gets fired when his first job. So he's fired.
Football coach, guys.
Yeah, football coach. Yeah, sorry for that. So football coach. So he gets fired. Former legendary football coach for Notre Dame. He gets fired. So at this point, he is like in his late 20s. His wife is pregnant, and he just doesn't have a job. And so he had no idea what he was going to do. So he was down on himself. So his wife gave him a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. And in this book, Norman Vincent Peale, I believe, wrote the book, says, grab a blank sheet of paper and write down all the big dreams or goals that you, or your vision for the best future of your life. And so I think it was the word he used was goals. Name it. And he's writing down, hit a hole in one, eat dinner with the president. Now, mind you, he is 29 years old, without a job, with a pregnant wife, and just they're struggling. So he's going down, and he says that with every single goal that he writes, he gets more and more rejuvenated. And he's writing down crazy goals. Be the coach of a number one ranked college football team. Be on the not the Jay Leno show, but the Dick Van Dyke show. Just shooting for the stars. And so he has like 101 things, and he takes it to his wife, and he's so excited. He goes, "Honey, here are 101 things that we're gonna accomplish." His wife goes over the entire list, and she goes, "Why don't you add get a job?" He goes, "Okay, 102." So he adds get a job to it. And years later, so he goes and he kept that list with him, and he accomplished every single one of those crazy goals because he had it there. And from a hole-in-one to eating dinner with the president, being on the Dick Van Dyke show, the one that he said he crossed off was running with the Bulls. He ended up realizing, no, I'm not going to run with the Bulls. But amazing story. So for those who are listening, go swing for the fences. I love what you said. Go big. Just create that big vision, and then the goal setting will come in, and just start chopping at it. Just start chopping little by little.
And the distinction, guys, is the goals is where you set realistic things for yourself to hit along the way.
Yes.
This is the marathon. The vision has to be a marathon. It has to be so big that it's going to take time.
Yes, 100%.
So I've got a great question from one. I don't know if it was a WAG member or someone emailed me, and she asked. So she's clear that setting priorities, focusing on them, and then giving those priorities her full attention is the key to accomplishing big things. Mm-hmm. Her question is, how do we know when the goals we set, and maybe we can reframe this as the vision we set for our life, is how do we know if it's based on just pure emotion or something that we truly deeply value?
I think for me personally, I'll give you my own personal experience. I do know anytime the reason it's such a good question because it's so individualized. It depends on everybody. But for me personally, and what I've seen based on experiences, for example, these elite athletes and these coaches who coach elite athletes, I asked them, I said, how did you know this is what you wanted to do? Because they just knew it. And they said, they couldn't stop thinking about it. They just could not stop thinking about it. And I think, emotions are fickle. They come and they go. It's just like the climate change. It'll come and go. You're gonna have just this emotions. They just come and they go. But you're gonna have certain thoughts. You're gonna have certain ideas, some things that come into your mind and your heart that just don't seem to go away, no matter what. And you're laying in bed and it's on your mind, even though you know that it's a long shot to achieve, a long shot, but it's still on your mind. And you're like, you know what? And then you try to push it away. You try to talk yourself out of it. And when you know, it starts coming back. And then it starts coming back. And then it starts coming back. And for me, that's what it was like. In moments for me, there was a time in my career where, and I'll share this, I'll be very transparent, where I remember going to our ATM machine to withdraw money, 3 kids in diapers. And we had $14 in checking and savings combined. $14.
They only get 20s in the ATM.
Right. I was looking at my balance. I started crying right there. And my wife teases me because she says that I'm not a very emotional, like tears. Like I don't. And, but in that moment, I remember one of the few moments I just questioned my dream. I was like, am I doing this right? Am I hurting my family? Did not have $14 at the point. And it was one of the scariest. And then going to ask my parents for money and asking people for money to help us out. Mm-hmm. But you know what? And then I thought, okay, I'm going to go back, get a 9-to-5 job and just, you know what, let me put this aside. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it, even though my deepest, darkest moments professionally. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I just stuck with it. So just to give you a little example, you just won't stop thinking about it. And for those of you who are watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You probably know what I'm talking about, Mike. You probably experienced it.
No doubt. Yeah, that resonates with me so much in this chapter of my life. I've told you, I've thought about doing some kind of like personal development coaching or counseling since I started college. And I had kind of written it off in my life because I became a strength and conditioning coach, and then I started a business, and I just thought it was never going to happen. But I kept thinking about it year after year after year after year. And just this year, I started making it happen with our staff. And so that it really resonates, man.
Yeah, so true. So true.
So once we're clear about where we're headed, what our goals are, how can we instill habits that will allow us to get there as quickly as possible? Yes. What's the formula for creating and sticking to habits?
Okay, I think so first thing I want to suggest, I want to highly, highly recommend, it just came out. So one of my favorite thinkers and authors is a gentleman named James Clear. He just came out with a book called Atomic Habits. The best book on habits I've ever read. And I've read a lot of research and a lot of books. I mean, Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habits, outstanding as well. Great ones. Atomic Habits is a game changer, and he combines the research behind it, and he's just such a great writer. So just a little, I don't even know James Clear, never met him, never talked to him, but that book is amazing.
Awesome.
But so I'd say go there first. Number 2 is it all comes down to your process. If I were to sit down, if you're sitting this and I'm looking at you, if I were to ask you, okay, here's your vision, here's your goals. Now, what is your process, a day-to-day process? If you don't know how to answer that, that's where you need to start, because it all starts with your process. People who don't have a process and don't live on purpose, with pure purpose, or live by default, that's where it becomes very, very difficult to achieve whatever goal you're trying to go for, whatever vision you're trying to go after. And my invitation to you is to identify the little tiny habits that will lead to accomplishing your goals. I'm a huge proponent of winning the morning. I talk about that all the time. And so I would say start there. When I say winning the morning, we all get, and I've said this before in other podcasts, 86,400 seconds a day. The most successful people in the world, they effectively use those 86,400 seconds. It doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you live. Like that's the time we get. And if you can prioritize and plan those and then start strong by winning the morning. And what I mean by win the morning is, number one, prioritizing sleep. I think and I just want to kind of get off just a little bit. We had a renowned Olympic trainer come to speak to a group of us once. And he was going to be with us for 8 hours to talk about pretty much the anatomy of an Olympian and what it takes to train them. And he goes, okay, want me to give you the secret to high performance? He goes, make sure they optimize sleep. And he goes, I'm done. And he jokingly, that's it. He goes, that's the key to high performance, is optimize your sleep. And so I want to say that I'm not a proponent for waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning if you went to bed at 12 in the morning. Like, right. Get your sleep. So winning the morning is after effective sleep, whatever that is for you, after effective sleep, knowing what are you going to do in the first 90 minutes to 2 hours of your day? Like, what do you do? And maybe for you, it's first 30 minutes or first hour. For me, it's workout, read mindfulness, read scriptures, and then study. And because of the nature of my job, I study 3 to 4 hours a day, just because of the athletes I work with. But that's just how, and breakfast is in there as well also, but that's just what I do. It's for clarity, it's to help me, but it looks different for everybody. And when I wake up, shifts and it's different, but it would be to identify your process. That is, and to look at certain aspects of your life where you need a process. Sometimes, what's your process when you walk into work? What's your process when you walk into the gym? What's your process when you're done with the workouts? What's your process? Now, if you're listening to this, you might be getting overwhelmed. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn into just a robot. Start simple. Maybe if I were you, I would start in your morning and I would start at night. Just get your 2 bookends down. Like, a lot of athletes, elite athletes, they struggle to get good sleep because they have so much on their mind. If you create a great nighttime habit, a nighttime routine, it's going to help shut your mind down. It's going to help quiet your body, and you're going to get better sleep. And so I would say start there. And then once you have those 2 bookends, then look at optimizing and putting processes around other aspects of your life.
What do people do? So let's say they identify that process. They get some momentum right there. They create their vision. They're really inspired and motivated. But then some time goes on and they lose touch with that a little bit and they fall off one or more of those habits. What ways can they either stick to those habits or come back when they're experiencing some adversity?
That's great. So the answer is very simple, and it's just more of a biological answer, and it's one habit at a time. Just one at a time. So one of the things that's really problematic for a lot of people, some of you might listen to this, you're like, okay, great. I'm going to have my vision. I'm going to have my goals. I'm going to do my processes. You are setting yourself up for failure because the mind, it's hard enough to cultivate and develop one habit by itself. To try to throw on multiple, it's frustrating because you're going to struggle at all of them, and then you're going to throw in the towel and be like, oh, I'm just not good at any of them. So one of the keys is to identify, okay, in Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, he talks about keystone habits. Basically, the keystone, if there's an arch, the keystone is the one right in the middle that holds everything else up. If I were to ask you, what is a habit that you either need to start doing or stop doing, that if you did would make the biggest impact in your life? What would that be? Then, whatever that answer is, build a process around that. That's it. Just start with one. So here's the cool thing that happens about that. Once you start building a habit, there's one, and you do it over and over again. Now here's where the fun, nerdy part comes in. In your brain, you start to groove neurons. So it's called neurons that fire together, wire together. And so the more you do something, all of a sudden these neurons just start to fire, and it happens in your prefrontal cortex. And then what ends up happening is once they fire so much, then it'll just go back in your subconscious, and then it's habitual. You don't even have to think about doing it because motivation, sometimes there comes to a point to where the formula that James Clear says, first it's unbearable, then it's uncomfortable, then it's unbreakable. And that's the process of habit formation. So you want to start early, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. If you fall off the horse, hey, learn your lesson, get back on, and just keep sticking with it, because it can become something you do second nature. So you, Mike, and myself, there may be, or anyone listening to this, there could be certain habits where when you first started, you had to psych yourself out. You had to motivate yourself. And then, because you kept doing it, you don't even need to be motivated, because it's like, oh, why do you go to the gym? It's because that's just who I am.
Right.
It just becomes your identity, where it just becomes what you do. And that comes through sheer volume, getting all those reps in. That's what I would say.
That's amazing. Guys, I've only got a couple more questions for him. So WAG alumni on the call, go ahead and start asking any questions that you have for Justin. Justin, let me ask you about this. So I've been doing a lot of work on habits and how they form recently. And I picked up this term, inevitability thinking, recently. And so the idea is that ideally you want to put a constraint in place that makes it inevitable that you stick to your habit or you fulfill your goal. And a great way of doing that is by forming some kind of external motivator. For instance, I want to spend an hour a day building the skill of personal development coaching. And it's a really vague kind of thing, and it doesn't perfectly fit into my career right now. And so there's all these excuses for me not to do it. The way that I've stuck with it is, if I don't do it, I have to do it 5 of 7 days. If I don't fulfill that any day, I have to eat 10 double cheeseburgers and 6 ice cream cones. So it's a consequence that I will I never want to have to do that. And so it's just this constant reminder that is allowing me to really just get in the rhythm, so that it's an automatic behavior. Like you're saying, like I'll do it for 30, 40 days, and then it's just going to be a part of my life. What do you think of that? Is that a positive thing? Is there any harm in that?
So what you're describing is, Heidi Grant Halverson out of Harvard. Actually, I don't know if she's in Harvard anymore. So she created something called the prevention versus promotion mindset, and how people are completely different. And basically, it's kind of like this: people who love to win versus hate to lose. Mm-hmm. Completely different. It's same objective, but these people love to win. These people hate to lose, and it affects them differently. But they're both going for the same goal. There are some people, so there have been studies done where there's a group of people who say, if you do this, I'm going to give you $10. That motivates them. Oh, yes, they love it. There's another group where that doesn't really motivate them so much. It's opposite. You give them $10. You say, if you don't do it, I'm going to take that $10 back. Yes. That's the prevention mindset. It's like, oh, snap. And so now they are going to work really hard because they don't want to get that money taken away from them. And so not any one of them isn't wrong necessarily. It's what works best for you. And I think the fact that you identified that is powerful. I have a friend who very similar to you. He wants to be better at self-development, just kind of reading. So he reads a TED Talk every single day. To encourage himself to read a TED Talk, he actually has an account that he created called like his TED Talk account. He will pay himself $20, pay himself every time he reads a TED Talk for the day. He can only give himself one, and then that money is going to go to helping someone in his family. So the only way he's going to help someone in his family is if he uses this fund. The only way he pays himself is if he reads a TED Talk a day. And that's what helps him. And so that's more of the promotion mindset for him. And so I think that that's such a little tiny nuanced psychological factor, but it's powerful, because the reason that some people might be held back, they may be struggling, is because they are using the wrong tactic for their personality. Another one is you might be measuring the wrong thing. For example, my mom, for example, she allows me to share this. whenever she goes to spin class, when she used to go to spin class, she used to love when just the joy of just working and giving your best. But once the instructor said, okay, now you're racing the person next to you, she's like, oh no, she hated it. Just the thought, they're not racing, nobody knows. But when you tell her, okay, now you're competing against somebody, she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it at all. And so to find out what works best for you. Are you promotion? Are you prevention? Are you process oriented? Are you more results oriented? And once you figure out what works best for you, that's when you can really set up the processes, the rewards, the consequences that best help you. I love it. I love what you said.
That's fascinating. So that's a great segue. And guys, this is my last question. So if you have any more questions, just post that in the little chat box, and then we'll answer those after. So what do we do if we're losing motivation? What might be going on, and what can we do about it?
Yeah. So one of the things about motivation is, just like emotions, is motivation is something that comes and goes. So it definitely comes. So I'm going to explain two concepts for you. So the science on motivation is called, in the research theory, it's called self-determination theory. And according to the research, there are three factors or three variables that need to be present to enhance motivation. So number one is autonomy. You have to have a sense of control. If you take away someone's sense of control, all of a sudden their motivation starts to drop. If you don't feel like you can control the outcome, and this is where people start to struggle, when if your weight is the only indicator of success for you, and you're working extremely hard and that number isn't going the direction you want it to go, you are going to feel like you don't have control and your motivation is going to drop. So autonomy, you need to have a sense of control. C stands for competency. So you have to have a sense of improvement. Motivation grows to the degree that you feel you're getting better at what you do, whether it be your process, whether you're seeing a little bit of results. Competency is everything. It's huge. And then the last one, which is interesting, is relatedness, or in other words, your relationship or your support system from other people. So if you have support from a coach, if you have support from loved ones, if you have support, you feel that people are encouraging you and helping you along the way, motivation is going to go up. So there you have the three. So autonomy, competence, and relatedness. If you have all three of those, motivation is going to be extremely, extremely high. So if you're missing one of those, then yeah, you're going to see it start to waver. So that's.
Can I dig into one of those?
Yeah.
I want to dig into that. The first one was autonomy, right?
Correct.
So this is something that we deal with all the time. So, and you use the perfect example. A lot of people, they start with us and their main marker of success is their weight, right? Which is something that is at least partly, if not entirely, outside of their control. And one thing we talk all the time about is having as many markers of progress as possible. What's the benefit of having more markers of progress?
It kind of, for me, it goes on with, I do an analogy, a confidence analogy with the athletes I work with, confidence elevator. We talk about an elevator and the cables that support the elevator going up and down. And then basically the analogy is, the more cables you have, the elevator has, what happens to your confidence? Oh, the more confidence you're going to have. Why? Right. Because if one goes, you still have a lot of other cables. But if you only have one cable and that cable's cut or something goes, you're doomed. You don't have a lot of confidence stepping in there. That's the average mindset. A lot of times, use your example. If weight is the only cable you have on your confidence elevator or your success elevator, so to speak, if we can change it, and you're not getting the results, you're going to struggle. You're going to absolutely struggle. So that's why I think what you said is markers of progress, huge. Because the more you have, you want to catch yourself winning. And particularly,
I love that.
Yeah, and particularly things that you have control over. And I love what you said, because when I'll sit down with an athlete, it's okay, how do you view success and how do you view failure? And sometimes just fixing that can help so many things. And so really helping people identify, okay, what can you control? Let's just focus on that. And I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said.
Kick ass, man. All right, we've got a question from Kelly Lair.
Okay.
So knowing you are going to have setbacks, what advice do you have for mentally preparing for setbacks before they happen so you are able to move past them more quickly? How much of it is self-talk and how much of it is just preparation?
I think it's a combination of both. I think especially in the moment. So self-talk, and I'm clumping self-talk into providing evidence against the obstacle, identifying what you can learn from it, how it can make you stronger. There's a lot of different things with self-talk. So I think it is a component to overcoming obstacles. Is it Kelly you said?
Yes.
Kelly? Okay, so Kelly, earlier, I don't know if you were on, but we can take the same principle during the G-WAP, setting goals, whys, obstacles. And what I would do if I were you, Kelly, I would write down all of your obstacles. Like just put them on a paper, just empty the tank. What are all your possible obstacles, punches in the face that I like to say, coming from a quote from Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And so we want to be able to have, okay, what can you possibly experience? And then come up with a plan against it. This is called implementation intentions. And again, and I'll give you the stat again, over 60% more likely to respond effectively. So what I would do, I would come up, we call it a bounce back plan, staring those obstacles in the face. Because what a lot of people do is like, oh no, I hope this doesn't happen. Oh, I hope I don't face this. And then they avoid going after their dreams because of the possibility that they might run into that obstacle. I believe you just know you're going to run into it and have a plan for it. And maybe your plan for the obstacle, let's say, for example, the obstacle is you're afraid of a certain move. Let's say handstand push-ups. I'm just going to throw that at handstand push-ups. You're afraid your shoulder's going to give and you're going to slam your head on the ground, whatever. But to be able to, maybe part of your plan for that obstacle is to, maybe it's a reminder tactic. Maybe it's, hey, you know what? I've done this before and I know I can do it again. Or, hey, maybe it's a visualization technique before you do it right before you go and do your handstand push-ups. Maybe you tell yourself, hey, you know what? If I hit my head, I'm not gonna crush my spine. You just provide evidence against it. Debate those negative thoughts. That is an aspect of planning to face those obstacles. But yes, I think it is so powerful. Instead of sticking your head in the sand and trying to hope they don't happen, stare them right in the face and have a plan for when they happen.
Boom. Well, that's all we got, man. That's the only question. So, dude, surprisingly, I think this is our best one yet.
Oh, nice.
You're dropping knowledge bombs today.
Oh man, this is fun. This is fun. I always love chatting with you, brother.
Man, thank you so much. Where can people find you personally and keep up with all of the content that you're putting out?
Yeah. So primarily I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Justin Sua, JUSTINSUA. My link to the podcast is there. If you ask me questions, I usually respond relatively quick. Anything I can do to help provide some content.
And what's the podcast called again?
Increase Your Impact. So I like to say it's a podcast for people who hate podcasts.
Yes,
so it's only 2 to 3 minutes every weekday, something short, something simple, something to get you on your way for the day. Yeah,
the term and the term mindset and the interest in the word mindset and this, like in the functional fitness space and the health and fitness space, is so huge right now. And the way that you do your podcast is just complete gold. So guys, if you haven't checked it out, it's bite-sized, mostly just actionable things to improve your mindset. And how many are you putting out a week right now?
5 a week, every weekday. So today I just recorded 770.
Jesus, I love it. Guys, check it out. You got nothing to lose. Justin, thank you so much for your time, bro.
Thank you. Appreciate it.